This podcast episode is sponsored by our friends at Babylock. Babylock has introduced Sew in This Together to help people make it through this unprecedented time through their shared love of sewing. They are offering 60 days free of their sewed online classes to sewers in the United States and Canada. The classes cover sewing basics, new techniques, and projects. In addition, Babylock is encouraging sewers to make and donate homemade face masks. A step-by-step mask-making video and pattern can be found on the Babylock blog, as well as a list of organizations in need of masks. Visit the show notes for this episode at threadsmagazine.com for links to Babylock's Sew in This Together face mask tutorial and free sewed online classes.
Good morning. Good morning. It's Friday, and I'm Sarah McFarland. I'm the editor of Threads Magazine, and welcome to a bonus episode of our podcast, Sewing with Threads. And I'm here with Carol.
Hi, I'm Carol Frazier, the senior technical editor of Threads.
And Erica.
Hello, I'm Erica Redfern. I'm an assistant editor.
And today we were going to talk about some recommendations we have for great sewing and fashion and design content. I know I have personally not had a lot of extra time, and I'm sure that's the case for many people. It's definitely been the case for the Thread staff. But still, when I do get a few minutes to relax, I've really been enjoying some of my favorites on YouTube. And we have a YouTube channel with a lot of great project and technique content. And then these other people that I watch are kind of supplements to that. So, and Erica and Carol came up with some ideas for recommendations as well. So, Carol, would you like to start? Would you give me a good recommendation to something I might be able to watch this weekend?
Okay, yeah, you know that I don't spend a lot of time on YouTube actually at all, and so it's I'm kind of a newbie at it. But I did look around a bit, and I found a channel that I really thought was interesting. It's called Global Fashion Workshop DIY, and it's Paukshte Irina Workshop. She's a Russian lady who is kind of like a cross between Judy Newcomb and maybe Louise. I mean, it's hard to explain, but she has a lot of videos that are about how to do pattern drafting, fitting, construction. I watched one just this morning about how to make a pair of pants, and she showed fitting the pants, the woolen pants on her model, and then she took them apart and pressed them into shape so that instead of all the fitting that you do, you know how we're tugging stuff up and darting stuff out and trying to fix things so there's no draggy stuff under the seat, whatever, she shows how to press that shape in. So it's kind of like a tailoring class as well, but for women's. And she's got quite a few videos that are really interesting. You need to listen carefully because she speaks in Russian, but it's dubbed in English. And the terminology is not necessarily always what we're used to hearing, but she's demonstrating at the same time. So you can learn quite a lot from her, I think. And she has quite a few different things, easy stuff, how to make a dress with, 10 different measurements, and then much more complicated things as well. So it's actually a pretty good, fun thing to watch, I find.
That brings up two things that I really enjoy about the content on YouTube, besides it being free, is that there is so much international content and that people are so generous with their techniques and their expertise.
I know. I think so too. This was just a find that I don't remember how I got to it. It was, one of those rabbit hole kinds of deals where I clicked from one thing to another and landed on this and discovered that she had a lot of good content. And very classic kind of sewing and pattern making techniques.
I found I've really enjoyed some sewing adjacent content. So one of my favorite people to watch is Steve Dudaklian, and he has a leather workshop in Falls Church, Virginia. Beato's Leatherworks. And Steve will put together many of his videos are over an hour long, but he focuses on shoe and bag repair, and he is a miracle worker. I love seeing the before and after, and he very thoroughly shows you every technique and every step and the different tools that he uses. And it's something that I can put on while I'm working on my own project and just kind of follow along periodically with what he's doing. And I really like seeing the tools he uses. He's very generous about explaining things.
No, he's amazing. Sarah has us watch some of these sometimes during lunch. It is just so much fun. It's like the most fun kind of competence and skill content that you can get. Yeah.
It's very soothing to watch him, and he's got a great sense of humor. I like watching him crack jokes like, ha ha ha, it's hammer time, when he has to hammer the leather.
Yeah.
Yes, he has a wonderful sense of humor. And even though the videos are long, and sometimes there'll be a big space where he's not talking to you, it's fine. It's like you're in the workroom with really a master craftsman. And Erica, you and I were talking about there's a person that we both like to watch.
Yes. I've been kind of going down the rabbit hole with Bernadette Banner's videos. She does a lot of historical sewing. She's not exactly instructive. It's more of she's sort of going through the steps and you more or less learn together. A lot of times she'll say, this is what I'm doing, but it's wrong. And I'll find that out later. You'll see what I adapt it to later. And she's just, I don't know, I just really like her aesthetic and how she does things. She's kind of inspired me to attempt some tailoring. She did a recent video on taking a coat she made like 4 years ago towards the beginning of her sewing experience, really. And she takes it apart and she redoes it. So she talks about like, oh, here's where I cut the collar slightly wrong. And so it doesn't want to stay open. And so she recuts it and she does a bunch of pad stitching by hand to make it lay better. And it just looks so fabulous by the end. I was like, oh, I've got to learn to pad stitch. I'm going to make a coat. It's going to be wonderful.
Yeah. Her skill level is great, and I love that she's sharing this journey of increasing her knowledge and retrofitting a garment. That's a great, or retro tailoring a garment. That's a great topic. I would love to see her do that.
It was really interesting because she was talking about like I really didn't know what I was doing. You know, nowadays she likes to use like extant patterns and really. She doesn't really use the big four patterns, but that coat had been made from a butterick pattern, I believe. And she was talking about how it's really designed to be a commercial pattern. It's not really historical. It may appear to be historical, but a lot of the actual features are not really accurate. And so when she was retro tailoring it, she'd made some adaptations to make it more historical. And it was really interesting.
Does Bernadette do any sewing by machine?
Sometimes. She doesn't like to use her machine very much. I think she's kind of nervous about it. She doesn't feel as comfortable with it, so she hand stitches wherever possible. She did do a Lady Sherlock costume, like a Victorian Lady Sherlock, and she actually has like an 1890s hand crank machine that she was using for that. It was an absolutely gorgeous machine. But it's funny because she'll use historical techniques whenever possible. And in that case, she was like, I just happen to have this old sewing machine that's period accurate, so I'll use that.
Yeah. I think she has oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Thanks, Carol. I came across her because she did a video on creating a cozy sewing studio space in a New York City apartment. And I have limited space, and I was looking for a tutorial video about that, and it was fun to see her whole process. And I thought it was hilarious. At one point, I think she was going through her stash to reduce it.
Yep,
and
she was Marie-ing it.
It took days, and if I remember right, she just was able to take out a small portion of what she had.
Yeah, I think the thumbnail for that is her just like lying despondently on a pile of fabric. Which I think all of us can kind of relate to.
Do,
absolutely. Right? Yes.
Yeah.
Even my sister, who's not necessarily a sewer, actually contacted me a little while ago and said, have you heard of Bernadette Banner? I said, I have heard of her. She was interested in the studio tour also, Sarah. That was her thing. Yeah. My sister was interested in sort of seeing how somebody manages to get all that fitting into a small space.
Yes, it was really fun to watch. And I also, Bernadette's based in New York City, and I also enjoyed, well, of course, her studios are, and I also enjoyed her take on shopping in the garment district.
Yes, I always like watching those videos because I don't have as much experience in the garment district as she does. You know, she's been in the New York area for a long time. So seeing her go there and saying, this is where you go for that, that's where you go for this, it's good knowledge. It's good to know.
It is. And I like seeing her perspective on fabrics. I tend to go for probably more modern textiles. So it was good to watch her and learn about where she got different wools, where she looked for shirting, where she looked for some of these more classic fabrics.
Yeah.
Sarah, you have somebody I know that you like to watch who shows a lot of fashion show footage, I think, and commentary on that.
I do. You can correct me if I mispronounce his name. It's Loïc Prigent. And he is a famous fashion documentarian. He did the series Signe Chanel, which was a 5-part look while Karl Lagerfeld was still alive and still working at Chanel, about how the couture house worked. And Loïc's material, he manages to bring a lot of humor into fashion. He takes it seriously. He shows wonderful details. He has in-depth interviews with designers and models and fashion personalities, but there's always this sense of wit and joy in it. And just recently, he released a video about the Virginie, is it Viard Awards, the new head designer at Chanel. She was Carl's protege of her spring show.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
And it was wonderful. And he does little spot interviews with some of the celebrities who attend and, different fashion editors. He's very enmeshed in that fashion world. He recently did another video, too, about Yakima, who's a very young designer. I did not realize how
you never
young
know.
he is. Yeah. And he held his fashion show at a hockey rink, and he kept it very white and minimal and undecorated so that the focus was on the clothes. And instead of a traditional runway, the models crisscrossed what would have been the ice skating rink.
But there was no ice, was there?
No, there was no ice.
Okay.
It was just a smooth white surface.
Okay. I can't imagine trying to catwalk on a big old sheet of ice. I think there would have been some mishaps.
Well, especially with high heels.
Pretty sure I've seen an episode of America's Next Top Model where they had to walk on something like that. It was one of the challenges.
I hope they have an injury waiver or something that they signed beforehand.
Erica, did you have another content creator to mention?
I do. It's more or less in the same vein as Bernadette Banner. Morgan Donner does a lot of historical sewing. She focuses more on like medieval and Tudor stuff, which I have a huge soft spot for that era of fashion. I kind of just love it, and I love going to like Renaissance fairs. I have this sort of secret dream to eventually make this elaborate court gown and go to Renaissance fair just completely decked out, but I don't have the time or the budget for all the fabrics, so I kind of just like to watch videos of other people doing it and live vicariously through them.
Now, does she do elaborate embroideries? Or
I haven't seen embroidery videos from her. She made an Italian Renaissance gown at one point with like the slashes in the sleeves, and she made a farthingale, I believe, and she does all like the period accurate stays and corsets. It's really, really nice. She doesn't focus, I think, as much on period accurate materials or sewing as Bernadette Banner, which doesn't bother me personally, but I just really like the things that she makes and the periods of history that she focuses on.
Now, last year for Halloween, you made a very impressive costume.
I did. I was, I think, just a generic Renaissance peasant, but I attempted to use, all natural fabrics, and I don't remember what the pattern designer was, but that was more or less the beginning of my dive into historical YouTube, was around then when I was trying to find places to go for inspiration.
I should mention that we can put links to all of these different channels and to the pattern. And Erica, if you're okay, I'll put in a picture of you in your costume in the show notes for this episode.
I've been still searching through some of the sources from abroad, and I found a couple that I really enjoyed. I don't think they're whole channels necessarily, but they had some good content anyway. One of them is called À la rencontre de Bruno Legeron, who is a fleuriste and plumassier, which means he makes the
feathers,
fake flowers and feather or embellishments for couture houses. And there's a really great video of his studio showing how those things are made, and it's subtitled, so it's easy to follow along. That one's it's just dreamy. And then there's another one that's a bit longer, and this one is it's about 50 minutes. It's nearly an hour, about the making of one amazing coat from a Christian Dior haute couture show, spring summer 2011. It is unbelievable. It shows
that one.
You've seen that one all the way down to the tambour beating, the overlay of tulle. There's just every minute has a new technique that you haven't seen somewhere else. That one's really fun to watch.
I'm definitely gonna have to check that out.
Yeah. It's really great. And, you see these clothes come down the runway and you think, yeah, I know that took a lot of work, but you have no idea what's in there. I have another idea for if people are interested in tailoring. There's what I think is maybe a 2-part series put out by the Museum of Modern Art on how to make a Savile Row suit. And we'll include the link to that. That's kind of fun. And it shows the fitting and, the cutting and all the construction, basically. It's a little bit of an abbreviated version, but it's really fun to see how they do all the, start from measurements down to the finished garments.
Oh, that would be fascinating to watch. Yeah, I would love to see that. There's another designer that I like to watch, Justine LeConte. I believe she's based in Berlin, but sometimes she comes to New York. And she does content focused around productivity, her life as a working modern designer, travel, analyzing different current fashion trends, and just sort of relating things that she's learned as she studied to be a designer. So she does these short, quick hit videos, and she has a very nice personality. So I always feel like I can catch up on fashion news with Justine.
Oh, that's nice. The short videos makes it nice and accessible if you don't have a lot of time.
Yes. Yeah. Sometimes the in-depth videos are great, but it's nice to mix it up with the shorter ones too.
Yeah. You can't always spend an hour watching Steve redo a pair of shoes.
I wish we can't. Sometimes it's 2 hours.
I also like hearing how people who are working in the design industry are thinking about what they're going to make for us to wear, because you do have questions sometimes about why the clothes out there look the way they do, or how they chose this style or these colors or whatever. It's nice to know where they're coming from with all that.
Yes. And another thing that she does is sometimes she analyzes different figure and fashion guides. So she will, explain how a particular author came up with their system for analyzing, what figure type you are and giving you fashion advice, and then give her assessment as a designer of how effective the system is and try it on herself.
Oh, that's cool.
Then I know so many of us, we love to sew, but we still supplement our wardrobe with ready-to-wear. She does different videos on assessing ready-to-wear from different stores, from strictly a construction point of view.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And she also does accessories, so she can talk about, what to look for in a quality handbag, what to look for or expect at different price points in shoes and everything. I always like having that information, being a better informed consumer.
Yeah, I'm still trying to sort of get away from the really cheap fast fashion to go more towards quality things. I think that would be useful for me to sort of learn what to look for in something that's going to last.
Yes.
Yeah, you can sometimes find well-made clothing at a low price point, and sometimes the expensive things are not particularly well-made, and you want to know that before you, lay out the cash.
Yeah. We could do a video like that at some point. Buy some, maybe not fast fashion, but buy some fashionable things and talk about how we would improve the techniques inside.
Sure.
That sounds like fun.
Or how we might adapt some for our own sewing. Sometimes it's better than what the instructions are like in a commercial pattern.
Oh, definitely.
Sometimes it's faster and a little bit more sturdy, so that's kind of cool.
Yes, I love to go snoop shopping. Carol, I think it was before you came back to Threads, but years ago, Judy, Stephanie, and I went snoop shopping at Saks Fifth Avenue, and I know that the clerks did not know what we were up to, because by the time about 45 minutes in, we had 2 or 3 clerks following us around the store because we were examining everything closely, turning clothes inside out. And of course, we were in the designer boutique, and I don't think they're used to people handling things so closely.
That's probably true.
Yeah.
Oh, I am the dull voice of reason most of the time, and I am also one today. And one of the YouTube channels that I have been consistently watching is called backintelligence.com, and it is basically a physical therapist who shares little short videos with exercises for forward neck, bad posture, any kind of backache that you get from sitting still over your computer all day, or sewing or anything like that. So it's a problem that I think all of us have. And he's actually really interesting. The exercises are so simple. You can just do them for like 3 minutes while you're sitting there at your desk if you want to. And I've actually already found that they give me some relief from, the whole business that we're doing now of sitting at our fairly non-ergonomic stations at home.
Send that my way, please.
I will. I'll put the link in.
Great.
It's actually not something that I was looking for. And again, I kind of stumbled across it and thought I could really use this. And I've been trying it. It's been good.
Yeah, it's funny. You said non-ergonomic, and I was like, whoop, better put the shoulders back.
I know. I definitely started to sit up once Carol said that. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Carol, thank you. That's a great suggestion, because I have been really feeling it. I got a marketing email the other day from this place in England where I like to get tights, and they were like, we're sure you've been sitting down a lot more, so here, why don't you buy some compression tights? I was like,
oh, I got that one too, Sarah.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I did. I deleted it without reading because I'm not wearing tights at all. So
well, it's been so good to talk to you. I think that we can wrap this up. We'll have links to all these different content creators. We'll talk again next week. And thanks everyone for listening. And we hope you're all staying safe and healthy.
Thank you for listening. Follow Threads on social media and visit threadsmagazine.com to view show notes for this episode. While you're on the site, check out Threads Insider, our online membership with exclusive access to expert sewing techniques. Until next time, keep on sewing with Threads.